today we have Mr. Schwartz from Goldman Sachs, Vice Chairman of the Goldman Sachs and the Chairman of the Asia Pacific. Welcome, Mr. Schwartz.
Thanks, Ja. It's great to be with you today. Thanks for inviting me.
Since June, that the Chinese stock market started to show some turbulence, and also the global markets also be shocked by the Chinese decline. And do you think that China is the reason for the global market shocks, or do you think that another financial crisis is coming? What do you see in the long run?
You're asking the question now that global investors have been asking and focusing on these last several months. June, July, and August were really challenging months in China. Is slower growth a problem this year or in the next several years? Not in my mind, because slower growth, higher quality growth, more balanced growth, more sustainable growth, that's exactly what the government should want to create a much stabler economic foundation over the next several decades. So that slower growth is not only acceptable, it's desirable. Secondly, all of the reform is exceedingly complicated. The capital market reforms, the economic reforms, the urbanization reforms, the social and cultural reforms. But nonetheless, it's the right plan in my mind. And I very, very much hope that Xi Jinping sticks to this plan. He's got it exactly right. This is the right plan. And in my mind, in an historical context, it doesn't matter whether it happens in the next 7 to 10 years or in the next 10 to 20 years, or the next 20 to 30 years. In the sweep of history, 20 to 30 years is really a very short time period. What's important is that Xi Jinping and the Chinese leadership sticks to this plan. And if they do, I think China will be a hugely important economy, politically, commercially, economically, socially, and culturally over these next several decades. And if we stick to this plan for reform and opening up, I think there will be nothing but good outcomes for China. And frankly, for the rest of the world as well. The rest of the world will benefit by a much stronger, much stabler China.
Okay, let's talk about your business here in China.
Sure.
Yeah, as the China has raised the initiative about the new normal, which is a slower growth but a high quality growth. How can you adjust the Goldman Sachs strategy here in China to suit with this Chinese huge initiative?
I think all of the economic plans laid out by Xi Jinping and Li Keqiang will benefit us at Goldman Sachs. We're fully supportive of this reform plan, in part because we think it's very good for China, and in part because we think it's very good for Goldman Sachs. Our business is growing here. This is our best year ever, this year of 2015. With all the market turmoil, this is still our best year ever operating in China. We've operated in China. We're one of the longest-lived foreign financial institutions operating in China. We've been here for 20 years. We started, as you know, Goldman Sachs globally is 145 years old. In China, we're 20 years old. We started in China in 1994 as a rep office. And that rep office was begun just with several people, and the rep office existed for 10 years. It allowed Goldman Sachs to operate from outside the country, but coming in, visiting, transacting business without having people on the ground locally and domestically onshore. We led all of the early privatizations for China Mobile and PetroChina and Bank of China. That's a very proud part of our China history as Goldman Sachs. But in 2004, 10 years after we had registered our rep office, we became the first joint venture. We became a joint venture in 2004 with a Chinese securities firm, Gaowa. And for the last 11 years, since 2004 right up till the present, 2015, we've operated as a joint venture with our Chinese partner, Gaowa. And as I've said, we've grown through these 10 years. We've had great success. And we have increased our workforce, increased our investment, increased our capital we are fully committed to our China business. And in this year, 2015, we feel we're the most successful joint venture operating in China, and we want to continue to grow and expand.
What's the secret, do you think, can make your business success in China?
You're asking the most difficult question when you tried to narrow down to a single secret. I'd say the secret of success for Goldman Sachs globally has always been twofold: our people and our culture. For 145 years, we have focused intensively on recruiting and attracting the very best, the most talented young students to join Goldman Sachs. And then with a lot of training and a lot of mentoring and a lot of encouraging, we hope to keep our people for very long-term careers at our firm. And so our people are absolutely the underpinning for all of our success. But around our people, we've built a very strong corporate culture. And that corporate culture is based on the values of Goldman Sachs. Our values are all about teamwork and partnership and communication and collaboration. Our values are all about just an intense focus on our clients, serving our clients in every way and the best ways we possibly can. And our values extend beyond just our business and commerce. We have a strong set of values in philanthropy, in charity. We've made billions of dollars of contribution in all of the communities where we work around the world to support big philanthropic initiatives, because that's just a core value of Goldman Sachs. And then lastly, our last core value is all about diversity and inclusiveness. We're very proud to operate as one of the most successful multicultural organizations anywhere in the world. But China's complicated. I've been coming to China for 35 years, and I've been living here. This is my 4th year living here. And it would take me a lifetime to really build the kinds of relationships that I really want to build and need to build to be able to be trusted by the Chinese, to be trusted by all of the people we work with across Asia. After all, we're a guest in your country. Goldman Sachs is a guest, and we view it as a privilege to be here. And we've never forgotten that. I've never forgotten that. And so we realize the value of being here is dependent on being here for a very long time. And that will ultimately be the key to our success. Our long-term commitment to China, our long-term relationship here, and attracting the very, very best Chinese students and professionals to join us here and build a world-class business in China. Those will be the keys to our success.
So besides the successful achievements, you must have some setbacks or the hardships here. So how can you handle that?
Frustration, and related to that is market access. I think you probably know, Jia, that in these last several years, foreign financial institutions really compete for just 1 or 2% of the available market for financial services and financial products in China. And then the Chinese domestic firms, the Chinese banks and Chinese securities firms, they compete for 98% of the available market. Now, I said a moment ago that this is our best year ever, and so you might wonder, how can this be our best year ever if we're only competing for a very small share of the available market? And the answer is because the total pie, the size of the economic pie, is growing. It's growing as China grows its economy, and it's growing as China establishes reform. So the size of the opportunity is growing, and that allows us to continue to grow our business even though we only have limited market access and we only can compete for a limited share of the market. Now again, eventually with reform, with the full term under Xi Jinping, with the bilateral investment treaty, I think issues like our entity structure and issues about market access will go away. And China will open up, and all of us will compete equally in China. That's the reason Goldman Sachs has been here the longest of any foreign financial institution. That's the reason I'm here as a group vice chairman of Goldman Sachs. the only group chairman or vice chairman from any financial institution in the world.
What's your life or business philosophy?
My philosophy in life has been to maximize and take advantage of all of the opportunities that come at each of us. And so I've worked so hard in my professional life, but I commit the same effort as I commit professionally. I commit the same effort philanthropically, and I commit the same effort to my family as I commit professionally. I think the thing that each of us is trying to do in our lives, the thing that I've been trying to do, is to make a difference in the world, to make a contribution. That to me is my overriding philosophy. I want to not only make a contribution at Goldman Sachs, I want to make a contribution philanthropically. I've been very invested in global healthcare. I'm very invested in educational issues and in environmental issues. I want to make a difference in the world. It's one of the core values of Goldman Sachs. We try to embed that in everyone who works here, and I've tried to be a role model. I've tried to be an example of just that. And so my wife and I have spent so much of our lives really making a huge commitment of time, effort, resources, capital, and really trying to make a difference.
Okay. The last question, how can you spend your weekend in China?
Well, I spend my weekend trying to see as many historical sites as I can. I remember when I used to be a tourist coming to Beijing, like every tourist, I would race through the Palace Museum, through the Forbidden City in 2 or 3 hours and barely understand what I was seeing. Now that I live in Beijing, my wife and I love to go over on Sunday afternoons and just over and over again walk through the Palace Museum and just see a corner of the museum for several hours. We do that at Temple of Heaven. We do it at the Summer Palace. We do it at the National Museum. We do it at 798. We love being able to see all of the important historical and cultural sites in Beijing, and we just feel we're very privileged. We're not tourists. We're not racing through Beijing in a few hours. We love to walk through Tiananmen Square. We know how historic it is. And I simply cannot get enough of it, Jia. I love living here and being here, and I couldn't think of a place that would be more stimulating to be. And that's how, if I have a free Saturday or Sunday, that's how we're spending our weekends.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Jia.
very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.